Hello, welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. How is everybody out there? Hope you're doing well. Someone in the comment thread, Sir Edward Ross, says, this comment is for Obama. I love you, Obama, and I'm concerned for you, Sir Edward Ross. I hope there's a wellness check in your future. But anyway, weird way to start. Let's get into it. I'm going to bring you today some of the truth about Iran's strike. I didn't have a live stream yesterday, so I couldn't bring you the breaking coverage of this, but it has taken a little while to get some of the reality of what happened with Iran's retaliatory strike. Yes, it was retaliatory. You have to remember that Israel has assassinated many of Iran's officials, and I personally, without hard evidence, think they probably also took out Iran's president. But that's complete supposition, which the media, the mainstream media, they never involve themselves in, right? There is no guessing of what might have happened or guessing of motivations of individuals or saying Trump did something because A, B, or C, or saying Biden meant to do something because A, B, or C. None of that ever goes on the mainstream media, and that's why they are better than me and all of my independent media colleagues. They are clearly, the mainstream media is clearly better because they never involve themselves in supposition, in theories, in guesses. They only bring you hard truth, is what I would say if I snorted mercury on a regular basis. So here is so initially the IDF said, well, I'm going to bring you this story. I'm also going to bring you stories about there's been 5 chemical catastrophes across the United States over the past month that no one's apparently talking about. Another update on Julian Assange and cool things that are happening with him and his freedom, and much more. All of that's coming and more. Please click thumbs up, click share, all those things as we fight the evil demons of algorithms and suppression. Anyway, initially the IDF and those doing propaganda for Israel said, first of all, they said 2 things that are completely contradictory. They said, this is unprecedented. This is horrific. Iran has attacked us out of the blue, unprovoked. They said all that. And they also said Iran did nothing. The missiles did nothing. They struck nothing. None of it resulted in anything. So you have to believe Israeli propaganda from the get-go, you have to believe both those things. Iran is horrific. This attack is unprecedented, unprovoked, horrifying, and needs to be responded to. And also, it did nothing. Those two seem to be what we call in the biz, mutually exclusive. But no, not for Israel and propaganda that they pump out. But so initially, the IDF and others said that, Iran didn't actually hit anything. The Iron Dome stopped them from hitting anything. And yet there's videos circulating. Even CNN showed one of these as they're doing their propaganda. But there's videos circulating widely of, like this one, of clearly missiles striking Israel. So in this video, you're clearly seeing them strike the ground. That is nothing hit by missile defense. There's also some shots like the one they're showing right now of many pieces in the air. Now, some are claiming that that's the Iron Dome stopping the missiles, breaking them into pieces. But others are saying, no, that's what a multiple missile strike looks like, where the missile arrives and has multiple warheads and then releases those warheads. But either way, it is now aggressively clear that Iran did actually hit Israel. And unlike the way Israel behaves, Iran is actually very reserved in their retaliation. They aimed at and struck military installations, military targets. On the same day that Iran hit Israel 2 days ago, Israel, or maybe it was the following day, Israel bombed an orphanage and killed countless children. So you see the difference in these 2 forms of battle, if you will. One is let's murder a lot of children. The other is we will strike military installations in order to retaliate against your terror attack across Lebanon, against your assassination of Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, and also an Iranian official was killed at the same time. Yeah, so very different ways of striking. And here's another video of Tel Aviv on fire the other night. So this is obviously not a missile that was stopped from hitting Tel Aviv. So obviously what the IDF is saying is false. Thank you, 11th hour, for the donation and for supporting the show. Really means a lot. So it's clear that Iran actually did strike Israel. And yet, if you Google, as I was doing this research as to what actually has happened, as to what we should be learning about Iran's strike on Israel, as I was doing this research, I Google it because I like to see what Google's feeding you as well as everything else. And like the first 15, actually, it might even be more than that. I stopped scrolling because everything was, first of all, from mainstream media, as Google does, but they were all either ignoring or glossing over whether Iran had actually caused real damage or not. There was some acknowledgement of maybe some of the missiles got through, but it's very vague. And this is by design. And I don't have the image here, but Israel had also digitally covered up satellite imagery. I don't know if they're able to do this for all satellites, but apparently some of the most popular places that people would look for satellite imagery, like Google Earth and such, Israel's able to actually add kind of fake cloud cover, like digital cloud cover, to make it impossible to see what actually happened in these strikes. So anyway, I stopped looking on Google and went to other browsers like Brave, and many of their top posts are mainstream media as well. But if you keep scrolling down, eventually you get like India Today, where you can actually get some truth as to what is happening on the ground in Israel. This article says satellite images confirm, and this is after, or they had a way around the digital cover of digital fake clouds Israel was using. Satellite images confirm damage to Israeli airbase of F-35s, but no widespread destruction as claimed. Some people trying to support Iran's retaliation were saying, Israel is done, they're crushed or whatever. I don't think that clearly does not seem to be the case. However, in a second, I'll talk about how I don't know that destroying every F-35 was really the aim here, but we'll get to that in a second. Ballistic missiles fired by Iran have damaged parts of an Air Force base that houses Israel's advanced F-35 fighter jets in its central eastern part. Images captured show damage to 2 aircraft hangars at the Nevatim Air Base in the Negev region, while one hangar appears completely shattered and another adjacent hangar sustained a partial hit. At least 2 craters appear to have been created by the impact of missiles at the airbase on the night of October 1st. Verified footage of the attack shows a volley of missiles falling on and around the airbase. And then they show the satellite imagery showing clear craters at several areas of the Nevatim Air Base. Also, there's a clear strike of a hangar. Now, you don't really know what's inside the hangar, so it could very well have damaged or destroyed an F-35. It's tough to know that. The satellite images do not show any damages to the jets. However, it is possible that 1 or 2 aircraft could have been damaged inside the hangars. So same thing I just said. But again, the amount of effort to cover up even just this information is kind of impressive. Like you look at New York Times, you look at any of these mainstream media, and they'll make references to the missiles striking Israel, but they will not tell you anything as to the reality on the ground, as to whether this did any damage to Israel's fleets or their abilities to, take off and land, etc. But in terms of why this is still powerful, whether it was just small damage or not, is because this showed again that Iran is capable of getting through the quote unquote Iron Dome. This the term Iron Dome feels like the name of like a professional wrestler who outside of when the cameras are off, he's a giant wuss. Like I'm sure there are some of those pro wrestlers who are amazing in the ring, and then you're in the back room and they're like, don't punch me. That's what it feels like. This is the Iron Claw, the Iron Dome, and then Iran is clearly capable of getting through this. Some have called, Hob in the comments is saying a tinfoil dome. Others have called it the tofu dome. Anyway, but I think this showed that Iran can get through it, but it also showed Iran apparently has thousands, if not tens of thousands of this type of missile, the hypersonic and others that can get through the Iron Dome. And, they shot, 180, 200 of them, or projectiles, but many of them were, I think, hypersonic missiles. But so they have countless number of these. And if they wanted to, it seems quite evident that they could utterly destroy these air bases. Apparently, according to Scott Ritter and others who have more official knowledge on F-35s, say that there are not that many places in Israel where an F-35 is capable of taking off from and landing in. It's not like the 1940s biplane. We can land in a cornfield. I don't think it really works that way. So if Iran were to truly destroy these bases, then Israel's ability to launch and land F-35s, it seems, would be over. And so Iran's strike showed, first of all, that they're capable of making a point without killing a bunch of children. Israel is not, apparently. Israel thinks no message gets through unless you bomb loads of children, babies especially. And so they're able to make a point without doing that. They're able to be reserved and fire only at military installations. But on top of that they're able to get through the Iron Dome, that they can pick and choose when they want to and where they want to hit Israel. Obviously, if they wanted to, they could have shot these at shopping malls. They chose not to because, yet again, if you really analyze the data and what's going on, Iran, like many times Russia has been to the United States, Iran is being the adult in the room. Iran is having their president has been killed. Their top general has been assassinated by Donald Trump and the Pentagon back a few years ago. The other commanders have been killed. Their consulate in Syria was bombed by Israel. And all of these offenses, they don't go after Israel's command structure, not yet. They don't go after children. They don't try to create just mass panic across Israel. They have gone at military installations. And for anyone who wants to go, well, those military installations are in populated area. Oh, you mean Israel's using human shields? Is that what you're telling me? Israel put their military installations near civilian populations. Oh, okay. As long as we're in agreement that Israel's using human shields, I'm glad you guys have come to that realization. And here is the extremely psychopathic New York Times. And this was one of their articles today titled, "We absolutely need to escalate in Iran." Yeah, that's what we need. That's absolutely what we need. And Alan McLeod is right, absolutely right. He said, delete your subscription to the New York Times. And it is horrific how much the New York Times pushes for war, death, and destruction, and manufactures consent for that war, death, and destruction. It's just so horrific. Bloomberg ran a slightly more thoughtful article about how, because apparently some of the U.S. and Israeli, ruling sociopaths are considering striking Iran oil facilities as a response. And Bloomberg is saying striking Iran's oil facilities would spark a dilemma for Israel and a shit show for the rest of the world, because hitting the oil facilities, the sector, a mainstream of the country's economy, and its international power, certainly offers a wide range of potential targets. However, somewhere between a half and 2/3 of Iran's oil is exported, mainly to China. And China would then turn to other countries to get their oil, such as Russia, thereby giving Russia a lot of money. So it kind of would backfire to the whole hegemony thing that the US is involved in. But on top of that, oil in general would shoot up, the cost of oil in general. You'd probably have many Middle Eastern countries that export oil that are in OPEC no longer wanting to export to the United States or Israel. I mean, I don't know if they export to Israel currently, but, and this would cause oil prices to shoot up. And what happens in the United States when oil prices shoot up? Oh, Americans, like average working Americans, start to get upset, and they start to do things like vote politicians out and march in the streets and get angry and think that maybe the ruling elite need to meet a guillotine sometime soon. And, in a dark alley where those kind of things go down. So there would be a shit ton of blowback if Israel starts blowing up Iran's oil facilities. But then again, there is no level of idiocy that they won't stoop to, that Israel won't stoop to, that the US government won't stoop to. There really is no level of idiocy that is too much. Anytime you think, well, they wouldn't do that, they wouldn't commit a mass terror act violating all levels of international law, blowing up thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies in people's pockets, killing children, doctors, nurses. They wouldn't do that because that would harm the global economy. It would harm the whole market economy in terms of what people are buying and where they're sourcing it from. Yes, they would. They're that dumb. They're that dumb and that horrific and that sociopathic. Yes, they would. So at every level, it's just like, wow, they cannot be. There's no level of dumb that they won't grab at, that they're like it's candy coming out of a piñata. Oh, give me some more dumb. There really isn't. Here is, so I didn't watch. I proudly say I did not watch the vice presidential debate because I cannot stress and to give you, I like to get down to the core level of reality. I know many of your independent media people like to dance on the surface and act like that's all they need to talk about. I like to get down to the core level. Core level reality is the presidency doesn't matter nearly as much as we pretend it does. Okay. Somewhere between 90 and 90% of all the structural issues of the United States of America and our empire stay exactly the same, no matter who's in that goddamn office. So the president doesn't matter as much as you think. The vice president matters zero as much as you think, unless the vice president is the acting president, such as with Dick Cheney was acting president while George Bush walked out there and smiled like a big dumb cowboy. But in general, vice president matters almost not at all. So on top of that, you have the fact that we don't actually have a democracy, right? Most of you know this. I mean, we have a republic, supposedly, but we don't have that either because the elections are rigged in about 14 different ways, some for Republicans, some for Democrats. But again, the two parties agree on 99% of the structural issues of this country. So what does it matter if one rigs one thing and one rigs another? Most of the gerrymandering is rigged for Republicans. Most of some of the election machinery is rigged for Democrats. You've got various voter purging, especially black voters that are purged in a lot of states. That's rigged for Republicans. You've got other aspects that are rigged for Democrats. Money rigs both sides. So you have to be a uber duper billionaire or have one in your pocket in order to fund any of this shit. So all this shit's rigged. So that's yet another level of how little the vice presidency matters and the vice presidency election matters. And after you get through all of that, how little this matters, you get to this debate that couldn't matter at all. So that's why I didn't watch it. I'm sorry to let you know. But I'm going to play a clip because I've seen one or two clips just to show you how, and here's the thing, I'm not going to spend any time debunking Biddly Bop Vance or whatever. I mean, Vance isn't even his real name, so whatever. JD Biddly Bop. he changed his name to Vance because he thought it sounded more powerful, I guess. I don't know. J.D. Poughkeepsie or whatever his last name is. I'm not going to debunk because he's an idiot. Like you should know he's funded and created by Peter Thiel. J.D. Vance's positions on everything change by the week. It really just whoever he's talking to, he tries to say the thing that'll make them happy or will give him more money or more votes. So ignoring all of that, I'm going to play 40 seconds of Tim Walz, and show you just how much garbage about Israel this guy can spit in just 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Here he is.
Final voice in the Situation Room. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Even in the question, just to debunk the question, it can't be a preemptive strike if they've already struck. They've already struck. They have already killed Iranian generals. They have already killed the top Iranian general, Trump and the Pentagon did, Soleimani. They have already killed. They killed another Iranian commander in the strike that killed the top of Hezbollah because he was meeting with an Iranian commander. And so he was killed. So you can't, and Israel's been assassinating Iranian scientists for years. You can't have like 14 assassinations of Iran and then say, should Israel preemptively strike Iran? They've already struck Iran in like 12 different ways. How can it be preemptive? Okay, that aside, let's hear Walz.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terror.
Nope, not where it started. Okay. It's been going on for years and years. Israel kills, before October 7th, killed thousands of Palestinians a year, often. Israel blows up thousands of buildings. They kill tons of journalists, often. And on top of that, Israel had 5,000 hostages before October 7th. So this whole let's remember when it began, October 7th, is bullshit. And it's designed to get you to think that's when history began, October 7th.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners.
Nope. 1,400. The only people who ever said 1,400 were the initial numbers coming out of the Israeli government on like the day of. The Israeli government has now decreased that number of people killed on October 7th from 1,400 down to, they're now in the 1,100s. I don't know the exact, maybe it's 11 and 1160, which is not a way to say that number. 1,160, something like, I don't know what it is, but it's in the 1100s. And so no one is saying 1,400 anymore. Tim Walz is, except for Tim Walz. Tim Walz is saying they killed over 1,400 people. No one's saying that anymore. So even just that is bullshit. But also, this is not when history began. Okay, in order to understand why October 7th happened, you have to understand everything before October 7th. You have to understand what it's like to live in an open air prison. But we'll skip that for now.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely
not defending itself. It's not defending yourself when you're murdering 40,000 people, 70% women and children.
Fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental.
Is it fundamental for Hamas to get their now 10,000 hostages back? Palestinians? Is that fundamental? Oh, no. Oh, it's only fundamental because they're being tortured. We know they're being tortured. And we actually now have very official reports saying not only does Israel torture these people, but part of the torture, some of the time, is our word. It infuriates me that if you say it on YouTube, they'll not show your video to people. But Israel's using sexual assault as a form of torture. And in fact, we saw, I believe it was video. Yeah, we saw video, and I had showed it on this show of the Knesset, the parliament, debating as to whether it was okay to R-word prisoners as torture. And they voted it was. It's fine to sexually assault innocent Palestinians because you feel like torturing them. It's just how morally bankrupt these soulless human beings are is really incredible.
And ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Oh, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. I wonder how there ended up being a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. How was that? Is it just the fig trees didn't have a good season? Is that why people are hungry in Gaza? Is it just not rained enough? Is that why people are struggling in Gaza? Or is that they're locked in a prison that's being bombed with enough explosive tonnage to equal 3 Hiroshima bombs? Could that be it? Even though if you look on a map, Gaza is tiny, 25 miles by 5 miles wide, and yet every inch of it has been bombed, equating to over 3 Hiroshima bombs. And I think that might be why there's a humanitarian crisis. But of course, he doesn't say that. He just says resolve, this vague resolve the humanitarian crisis.
But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States.
Now, that is one of the most horrific things he says, and that's why this clip is going viral, is because he says the expansion, the growing beyond where they are right now of Israel and their proxies is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary for a genocidal state and genocidal apartheid state like Israel to steal more land, to grab more hostages, to grab more resources, to expand, to get more weaponry. Like, and people were talking about Tim Walz, again, vice presidents don't matter, but they were talking about him as if he was the more measured one in the Harris-Walz duo. I think she just picked him because, Trump's big thing for the last election, like part of the reason he won, the election he won, was because he kept saying build a wall. And so I think Harris just figured if she had walls, then she'd win. Pretty certain that's why she chose this lunatic. Well, I got walls. He can't win on walls. Trump can't win on walls. If I got the walls, I get the walls. He can't get the walls. We can't all have walls. Walls will fix things. But the reason this clip is going viral is because he said the expansion of Israel is absolutely necessary. Totally unhinged. But this is the garbage rhetoric these lunatics are pushing forward. Okay, I am going to get to some other stories about the 5 chemical catastrophes across the United States in 1 month that barely get talked about. I'm going to talk a little more about the damage from Hurricane Helene and what that means. All that's coming up. It would be awesome if you guys could hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe on both YouTube and rumble.com/Lee Camp. If you have trouble finding any of these things, you can go to my link tree. Let's see if I can put the link tree on the screen. You can go there, linktree.com/Lee Camp, and find all my stuff. I also just added up there. I want to see if I haven't been able to find it yet on Spotify, which is why I haven't announced it, but it should be up there in not too long. Yeah, I still can't find it on Spotify, but it's a new podcast called Just Comedy, which is just my comedy segments. It is, obviously what I do here is I do analysis. I throw in some comedy here or there, but I do analysis, bring you what's going on in this world and what the mainstream media won't tell you. And that's what I do on this kind of daily basis with these live streams. But I wanted a place that you guys, you're in your car and you want to laugh or whatever, could get my comedy segments kind of all in one place. And so the first 2 episodes of Just Comedy, it's called. Get it? Get what I did there? Like justice comedy? Like just comedy and amazing? What I did? Oh my God, I'm so clever. I'm just so amazing. I can't believe how amazing I am. Anyway, it should be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts soon. Hopefully not long. But there is a link to listen to it online. And that's at my Linktree. Linktree.com/Lee Camp will take you to the Libsyn page where you can listen to it. So just remember that one. Linktree.com/Lee Camp. Sir Edward Ross says he just got it. Thank you. Thank you for coming late to the party, for getting the joke. You know what? Look, I wrote it. I didn't get it for the first 5 minutes. I just stared at it. And I was like, this must mean something. Anyway. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to go through 5 chemical catastrophes that have just happened in the United States, and of course, I'll get a little bit of the deeper meaning behind this. Just happened in the United States. This is all within a month. This is residents in Akron, Ohio. This is the article after it's over, are able to return to their homes after a large chemical fire prompted an evacuations. Residents have been informed they can return to their homes after a fire involving several hazardous materials at the SMB Products chemical plant prompted an evacuation in Akron, Ohio. Okay, that was September 5th. We've got people in Akron, Ohio fleeing for their lives because chemicals are on fire. And as we saw with East Palestine, Ohio, is that the United States, the EPA, et cetera, will do things like say it's safe to be there. They'll burn off chemicals that are dangerous to inhale. Even after they're done burning them off, they'll tell people, sure, you can remain in the area. Yet East Palestine, people are still getting cancer. They're still getting nosebleeds. It is actually absolutely horrific what's been done to East Palestine. And the U.S. could deal with all this, like on this, the printer paper budget of the Pentagon, like the tiniest drip of the Pentagon's budget could afford to give all of those people health care, buy them all out of their houses, like triple the prices so they can buy a nice house somewhere that's not toxic. And yet we don't do it. We don't do it because these people, these ruling elite do not care about you at any level. They would rather you sit there and get brain tumors and them tell you it's safe to be there than just a tiny bit of the Pentagon's budget. Thank you, Jay Tolbert, or I don't know if it's the French, Jay Tolbert, over on Rumble for the donation. Jay Tolbert says, thanks, Lee, for all you do and getting the truth out. I appreciate that. And thanks for Jace Elliott for the donation. More solidarity to you, Jace. Really appreciate it. That's okay. Jay says, sorry, it's not much. That is all right. I appreciate all solidarity of all kinds. So, okay, that was Akron, Ohio. Then this next one we actually brought to you when it happened a couple of weeks ago. Energy transfer pipeline explodes in La Porte, Texas. Natural gas liquids pipeline owned by Energy Transfer caught fire in La Porte, Texas on Monday morning, the company said. And of course, I'm sure they're not telling anyone to leave their homes because why not just let them stay there and get cancer 7 months later? So yeah, you've got that explosion. Then you've got Chevron plant in Geismar, Louisiana, 2 injured in a hydrogen gas explosion with serious burns sent to the hospital. An explosion at a Chevron plant sent 2 workers to the hospital. Witnesses reported hearing a loud explosion followed by fire. Emergency responders, including firefighters and airmen, quickly arrived on the scene. And that's in Geismar, Louisiana. I don't know anything about Geismar, but I know that Louisiana, perhaps more than any other state in our union, is known for having cancer alleys, basically whole areas of the state that are heavily, are cancer hotspots because of all the chemicals there, because of all the chemicals pumped into the air, because there's so little regulation in Louisiana. But on top of that, and cancer alleys fit under this description, they have corporate sacrifice zones, which are basically places that corporations go where they decide it doesn't matter what happens here. We can pollute it to fuck. We can pump chemicals into the air. We can destroy the area. It doesn't really matter. These are corporate sacrifice zones. But unfortunately, you'd think you hear that name and you go, oh, I guess people don't live there anymore. No, they do. There are people living there. There are thousands of people living in, maybe millions, in corporate sacrifice zones because they are not told. The state doesn't come to their door and go, hey, funny thing, we know you've lived here for a few years. We just wanted to let you know you will die very young. Okay, have a good day. Good to see you. Love the flamingo out in the yard. That is adorable. I got to get me one of those. You have a great day now. They don't. They just let these people suffer. And one of the reasons that people live in these corporate sacrifice zones is because they're more affordable. So these are usually struggling people. These are also, if you actually read the studies and read the articles about them, the corporate sacrifice zones are almost exclusively, it might be exclusively, but they are heavily in, non-white areas. It is in areas that tend to have indigenous people living there, Native Americans. It is in areas that have Black people and Hispanic people living there. Almost never is it in heavily white areas. And you might go, well, why is that? Is that because they literally want to harm Black people? No, it's, well, some of them might, but no, the real reason is because Black people, indigenous people, Hispanic people have far less political power in our country than nice little white areas. And so when the political power is approving these things and the companies are asking for these things, they go to the areas where they go, well, they're not going to have much of a fight. There's not a lot of people in a poor Black area who can call up the governor, who can call up a state senator and say, you got to stop this plant from coming in here. You got to stop this Teflon plant from destroying our waterways. They don't have that phone number. That phone number is not given to them. They don't have dinner on a regular basis with those people. So that's what corporate sacrifice zones are in this country. And I'd be surprised, honestly, if there's even one corporate sacrifice zone that is in a like heavily white area. But I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's just far less likely. And look at what they did with Dakota Access Pipeline. Dakota Access Pipeline, right? The big fight, Standing Rock and everything. It was initially supposed to go through whatever big cities near there. I don't know. Was it Bismarck or I don't know. But anyway, it was supposed to go through the big city. And then guess what? The people with some political power and the white people were able to fight it off. And then they were like, okay, we'll route it around and we'll route it through, the Native American area. So because they're not going to be able to fight us. All right, let's get to a couple more. This is all in 1 month. Evacuation order now lifted for area of styrene link near Cleves, Ohio. This is another one in Ohio. I don't know what it is with Ohio. Maybe Ohio has a lot of corporate sacrifice zones. Maybe that's why there's so many leaks there. Evacuation and shelter-in-place orders have been lifted after a styrene leak at a Cleves rail yard Tuesday afternoon. Of course, East Palestine, also Ohio. And again, just because they, and here's a video of it, just because they announced that like, oh, it's fine, you can go back to your homes, it doesn't actually mean the areas are safe. I mean, they said it was fine in East Palestine. And like I said, people a year and 2 years after that horrific train crash are still getting headaches and nosebleeds in East Palestine. It has not been solved. And I think I was one of the few shows, one of the few live streams to bring you that amazing leaked memo that Savage Joy got access to. She's done amazing work on East Palestine, and she got access to the internal EPA email where they found out, they discussed the fact that they knew the EPA and the Biden administration have the ability to give healthcare to an entire city. It's in our laws. Biden or the administration could write a thing, write a signing memo, write a executive action, and it could say everybody in East Palestine gets free healthcare for life, and it'd be done. It'd be over. Wouldn't even cost that much. Be over. And the law that allows them to do that, it's part of the Social Security Act, but it says that if a city or an area is hit by an environmental factor that impacts everyone, then the government has the right to give them free healthcare for life. And it's only been done in one city, Libby, Montana, because of asbestos mining there, and because they have a powerful senator who at the time was able to get them put on that list. But could be done all the time. They don't, because they don't want to help anyone, because they don't give a shit about you. I think maybe I need a button that just plays that. They don't give a shit about you. I just need to, like a morning radio show. I just push that. They don't give a shit about you. And then we could just do it over and over again. Could be my motto. Here's another one. Shelter, this is the last one. Shelter in place order for more than 90,000 Georgia residents was lifted after a chemical fire. Authorities on Monday night, this is September 30th, just a few days ago, ended a shelter-in-place order for more than 90,000 people east of Atlanta following a weekend chemical plant fire that sent a massive plume of dark smoke into the Georgia sky and led to complaints about a strong chemical smell and haze. And I'm sure, again, when they sent them back to their houses, I'm sure it was because everything was fine. I'm sure it was not that there was just a slightly lower level of chemicals in the air and they didn't want to keep telling everybody that it's not safe to go outside. So this was, again, in the smell spread. It was in Georgia. The smell spread to Atlanta as well. The other thing is they could, shelter in your homes does not mean none of the air from outside gets into your homes. Sorry to reveal that. Just because you got your windows closed does not mean you're not breathing in the styrene leaks. So what does this mean about the United States? Why do we have so many chemical catastrophes, so many shelter in place and try not to breathe the air? Try to hold your breath for the next 3 days. That should be good for you. Why do we have so? And yet again, it comes back to you have corporations owning our system. They make the rules. They also decide generally whether how bad it's going to be if they get caught violating the rules. So even if these companies did something wrong, let's say they failed to take safe measures with their styrene, what's the fine going to be? $1 million, some tiny amount, some parking ticket for them. It's borderline meaningless. I mean, the main reason they try not to have this happen that often is because they're afraid that it could look bad for their brand. That, honestly, is probably the only reason you don't see this every day of the week. But corporations owning everything. And if you get to actually a deeper level, I know this is good for those of you regular watchers. This is just gonna blow the top off your head. You're gonna poop yourself straight through your underpants right here when I say this. At the core of it has to do with capitalism, has to do with the fact that money rules everything. And guess what? Giving even 10,000 people, I'm talking large numbers of people, giving 10,000 people cancer that they don't find out about for 5 years or even just 3 years, it'll probably never be tracked back to you. It'll probably never cause a stir. It'll just ruin their lives and the lives of their family members. But that's how capitalism works. It's profit now. These companies are getting rich now. There is no concern for humanity. And as I've said many times before, if you show concern for humanity, if you seem like you might care about humanity and about the people breathing the air and about the people that you don't know out there that might be suffering, if you seem to show that kind of concern, you will not rise up the ranks at these corporations. You will be stuck, even if you're at these corporations to begin with. But let's say you are. Let's say you're in the middle management at one of these corporations. Well, the guy who doesn't give a flying about average people, about innocent people breathing their shit, drinking their water, he's the one who rises up the rank. He's the one who gets to the top. And, it would be incredibly rare, but if you did get to that top spot and all of a sudden you flipped, all of a sudden you changed, all of a sudden you became a class traitor and you said, you know what, we need to lose millions of dollars by making this stuff safer and by not harming people, or we need to give out, millions of dollars in restitution to all the people that breathe this toxic chemicals, or et cetera, et cetera. If you have that switch, you're not staying in that CEO role. You're not staying in that boardroom. The next day, you're going to be going, and why does my key card not work? And hey, Betsy, and my key card doesn't seem to, did they change the key card? Oh, no, you got it. Stan, man, that's what happens if you show concern for humanity. And at the root of it, it's the system. At the root of it, It's capitalism. All right, I want to jump to, this was pretty exciting. Julian Assange getting some due credit. I showed some of his speech the other day. Oh, by the way, everyone, please click thumbs up, click share, click skippity magoo or whatever, or not. Well, don't skip, but click click whatever buttons you can click that are good. Don't click the thumbs down. Take a Sharpie marker and cross out on your screen, on your computer screen or your phone or whatever. Cross out the thumbs down. Just use a Sharpie. I think that's the best way to do that. And thank you again for all you threw in a couple of bucks in the super chat. Really does help. Really does. Really is amazing. And patreon.com/LeeCamp. You guys know it all. You guys make this show possible. But here is Julian Assange at the EU. He spoke at the EU, and I showed some of the clip the other day, but I think I brought it to you before this happened, or maybe before I found out. But either way, the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly voted to confirm that Julian Assange was a political prisoner. And I know this may sound, and I can play the audio, but it's just them clapping. And I know this may sound like obvious to you, where you go, yeah, of course he was a political prisoner. But the reason this is somewhat big news is because this is coming from a largely pro-U.S. These are the U.S. servant boys, is the EU. And yet even they have acknowledged that this was a political prisoner, that Julian Assange spent over 12 years in confinement. It's actually, if you count the house he was stuck in before he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, I think it was more like 14 years in confinement as a political prisoner. And I think this is surprising because it's coming from the EU. Now, if this were Julian Assange receiving this announcement from the Lee Camp School of Journalism, then it would not matter much. But coming from the vassal states of the United States, the EU, pretty incredible that they voted. The European Parliament's Assembly voted that he is, or was for many years, a political prisoner. It's also a big FU to Britain as well, because obviously he was a political prisoner of both the US and Britain. And anyway, just more exciting news about Julian Assange. Okay, I want to bring you some stuff about Helene. And also, if we have time, some of the worker strikes that are going on. But this is, so you guys know about Hurricane Helene, and obviously if you watch CNN, it's nonstop coverage about the damage and everything, because it's damage porn. But they largely leave out the connection to climate crisis. They may occasionally have a little mention, like a burp that accidentally gets a climate crisis. Like they didn't even mean to. They, like the other anchors, look at them like they just farted because they said climate crisis. Well, they won't say crisis. They'll say climate change because that sounds softer, doesn't it? That sounds nice. Oh, I love it. Climate change sounds like when you go to your thermostat and you change it from 72 to 73. You're like, I feel like that climate change would be a little nicer. It sounds light and sweet. But no, it's people floating down rivers, riding on top of their house. Like, it is lives destroyed. So obviously we have well over 100 people. I think it's in the 140s now, but they believe many of the people that were killed, we won't find out about for many days, if not weeks. But anyway, hundreds of people killed by Hurricane Helene and all the flooding. The highest number is in North Carolina. I know Asheville is struggling. And for those of you in or have friends in Asheville, I hope you guys are doing all right. But here's some of the damage of climate crisis that no one seems to be contemplating or planning for or thinking about. Climate crisis can also impact things like your devices, like your ability to just turn on the escape box and pretend this world is fine. Helene, this is an article. Helene took out a North Carolina town that the entire tech world relies on. This is a tiny 2,000 person town, and it's been utterly destroyed by Hurricane Helene. And I did not even know of this town, and I didn't know of its connection to the tech world, as I think many of you probably don't. The town's called Spruce Pine, and it could have a massive impact to the entire global semiconductor industry. Spruce pine is one of the only places in the world to mine high purity quartz. The mineral is an essential ingredient of chips in countless products, including medical devices, solar panels, cell phones, and powering the latest tech craze, artificial intelligence. It's difficult to underscore the significance of Spruce Pine, a town of only 2,000 people, known for its charming downtown and blossoming arts scene to the global economy. It is, one economics editor said, it is rare, unheard of almost, for a single site to control the global supply of one crucial material. Yet if you want to get high purity quartz, the kind you need to make those crucibles without which you can't make silicon wafers, it has to come from spruce pine. While there are other places to find the material, such as Russia and Brazil, this mountain town is the highest quantity of the highest purity. A few weeks of shutdown is not the end of the world. However, longer than that would throw the industry into crisis. And I found this interesting because this shows the ramifications of climate crisis that, like, no one even thinks about. Like the fact that one small town in North Carolina that you've never heard of, that you've never been to, that no one ever talks about, ends up underwater because we can't get our shit together and behave like goddamn adults and actually change this world for the better. And it's underwater, and therefore you stop being able to get phones and solar panels and so many other things we rely on, and the processes that allow for AI, et cetera, get hung up and halted. And of course, we're going to see this again and again and again. All the Silicon Valley areas that are near forest fires in California, the massive droughts that can have implications. And yet, here you have the U.S. government, the administration, saying, first of all, they don't need to send more aid to these areas because, they don't have the money. They don't have the money to help these people. We just have billions upon billions. I mean, what's the number now of how many billions of dollars have been sent to Ukraine? But no, can't send any to North Carolina. Can't send any to Florida. Just let them struggle. But more importantly than that, they're making no effort to shift for climate crisis. And I'll just throw in my broken record moment, as always, because I'm the only one. I'm the only one I hear saying this. Maybe I'm not, but I'd love to hear who else is saying this. That the reason the U.S. has no intention of shifting away from fossil fuels is largely because the petrodollar. The world shifts away from fossil fuels, our dollar is fucked. So there's that. Here is video. Adam McKay posted this. Adam McKay has been on fire recently, and I love a lot of what that guy does. But he says, remember that as you watch this video of North Carolina underwater, remember that the governor in North Carolina still will not declare a climate emergency. And our news media almost never questions officials about it. Isn't it time to get angry? And I know if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see this, but it's someone taking a home movie of just it's above their waists. They're basically up to their necks in water. Their entire house is underwater, and they don't know what to do. I mean, they're just sitting there because they're not sure where else to go. And the water is up to their necks. And, you can climb up onto your roof, but climbing up onto your roof does not guarantee you safety. And we just ignore this. We just act like this is somehow normal and is absolutely not normal to have this level of weather-related crises across this country. Okay. I'm going to save. I will, assuming everything goes as planned, I will bring you information on the port strike tomorrow and workers fighting back in various ways across this country. But I need to wrap up for today. Thank you to all of you who supported the show. It'd be amazing if you could become a member of patreon.com or /Lee Camp or leecamp.net. But also, free podcast, my brand new free podcast called Just Comedy. And it's not, I couldn't find it on Spotify yet, but it should be there not long. But you can listen to it. The first 2 episodes are up. You can listen to it right now at linktree.com/Lee Camp. Just click on the link there when you get there of the Just Comedy podcast, linktree.com/Lee Camp. It's a free podcast. And obviously, once it's on Spotify and everything, I'm going to ask you guys to like do the things like whatever Spotify lets you click, star and share and whatever Spotify lets you do, so that it can hopefully build. And I just thought it'd be nice to have a place where you can just get my comedy stuff. And, when you need a break, from the play-by-play of this fudged up world. A fudged up world would actually be a lot better if we just had fudge everywhere. I'd be like, if we had climate change, but it was fudge related, if we were up to our necks in fudge, I feel like it would make drowning more acceptable. It would definitely make riding down a fudge river on your house more acceptable. It'd be tough to be that upset if you were riding down a fudge river on your house. I'm just saying. I mean, I suppose it depends on the type of fudge, whether you like fudge, but there's some things, there's some factors we can work out later. I'm just saying, I think it'd be better of the options, be better. Okay. I will see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
And the same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.